program. Welcome to the fifth installment of Everyday Money Skills, a community series led by Michele Eden Montas. Tonight we're going to be covering local, state, and federal resources. This series is designed to reduce financial stress, to build confidence, and to provide realistic tools that reflect how people actually live and work here in Down East Maine. If you're interested in attending more programs in this series, there is just one more a week from today. We are going to be covering taxes, retirement, and investing, the basics. I know I am excited about that one, so I sure hope you join us. For more information, you can reach out to me, Lizzie, Lizzie, at whrl.org, or by phone at 901-213-6667. We're all, I'd say, old hat at this now, but just a reminder, mute yourselves to minimize any audio distractions. But again, we're a nice small group, which is wonderful. So questions are welcome through the program. So raise your hand, pop a question in the chat, just come off mute. We welcome questions. So I think we're good, Michele.
Perfect. Well, welcome back, everyone. I am joining from my phone since my internet seems to not cooperate. So Lizzie will be sharing slides. That this is session 5 of Money Matters, and today we're going to be focusing on something that can have a very immediate impact on day-to-day life, so financial resources and support. So today's session is a little bit different from the others, less activity-based, because we're not talking about budgeting or credit today. We're talking about what already exists that you may be able to access. And I want to say upfront, this can be a frustrating topic because the systems can be difficult to navigate. So if you've ever had a bad experience with any of the things that we're going to cover, that's completely valid. And I think the goal today is to make the landscape more visible so that we all know what's available and then how people can typically access those resources. So let's go to slide 3, which we always talk about, but just a reminder, ask questions anytime. That can be verbally in the chat, but of course, always good to just listen if that's your preference. Let's move to slide 4 to get started. So today we're going to move through a number of different programs that all affect different parts of a household budget. And so some of these programs are designed for immediate needs like food or heating. And then others like Social Security shape longer-term income, sometimes over decades. And so no need to memorize details about every program. The goal is really to understand the categories and then know where to look when something can become relevant in your life. And as always, we'll be distributing the recording and the slides. So let's move to slide 5. Thank you, Lizzie. Such a good chauffeur. So in practical terms, these programs exist to really reduce pressure on household budgets. And so for many people, the issue is not a single expense, but it's truly the combination of several essential costs at the same time, whether that be food, heating, transportation, healthcare. And so these programs can reduce or offset some of those costs. And I'm sure the programs I'm talking about today are ones you are probably quite familiar with, but maybe we'll talk about them in more detail, or perhaps one will be new to some folks. So if any of this is stuff you already know, just let me know. And if you want to move on, we absolutely can. So these programs can reduce or offset some of those costs. That does not by any means solve every financial challenge, but it can reduce the likelihood of having to rely on credit cards, on payday loans, or other high-cost borrowing just to get through the month. And so this is intertwined with what we've talked about in other sessions when it comes to budgeting, credit, and just having a clear sense for your overall financial picture. So yeah, perfect. Slide 6. So there are several consistent reasons people don't always tap into programs, even when they may qualify. So one could be uncertainty. So people are often not sure whether they would qualify, so they don't apply. Another is complexity, and I think this could be the biggest one, where applications can feel long or unclear or just overwhelming. And then a third is simply not knowing where to start or who to ask. So in slide 7, we're going to get into the first tool or resource, and that which is the Primary Federal Food Assistance Program. And so the way it works, it provides a monthly benefit that is added to essentially what looks like a debit card, and you use it for groceries. Eligibility is based on income and household size. And an important feature is that it adjusts over time. And so if income goes up or goes down, the benefit amount can change accordingly. And I think this flexibility is particularly relevant in seasonal economies or for folks who may not always have the same amount of income every month. So, in practice, SNAP functions as a way to reduce pressure on the grocery budget, which can then free up money for other essential things like housing costs and heating. Um, for SNAP specifically, here's what happens in practice. It's through the state system. So it's a federal program, but administered at the state level. So you submit documentation, usually a pay stub or proof of income, even if that income is irregular. Most applicants would have a short phone interview. They would confirm things like household details, how many people are eating in your house, and then if approved, you would receive an EBT card in the mail with monthly benefits. Um, and so a detail around irregular income or income that is seasonal is that SNAP often averages income over time. And so that means eligibility can sometimes reflect a broader picture than just one paycheck or just 1 month. So if we move
I
to,
would also,
yeah,
I'd throw in a couple additional kinds of local resources too. We do have, there are a lot of local resources here in the Millbridge and surrounding areas. We have a fair amount of food pantries. The Maine Seacoast Mission has a great food pantry. They are also, I believe, open to folks not just in Cherryfield. So we're worth checking out. They have a great selection. It's set up like a grocery store in there. They have great farm fresh produce in the summertime. That can be a way to kind of ease your weekly or monthly grocery shopping, by supplementing with the pantry. There's also a lot of community meals too around. So also at the Seacoast Mission, there's a weekly meal called the Downey's Table of Plenty. That's every Sunday from 3:30 to 5. You can just go and show up there and have a nice meal with other community members. I know that there's also, I think it's a monthly community meal based in Machias too. All of those I can send out details afterwards, but I think, in addition, supplementing these kinds of application-based food assistance, there's also local food assistance resources, such as also the Millbridge Commons Wellness Park, which is an initiative of WRL, of Women for Healthy Rural Living. We run two large free and pick your own gardens at the Red Barn Motel in Millbridge and also at the Millbridge Commons. That's part of our Incredible Edible Millbridge initiative. So you can just come and grab veggies there in the summertime free of cost.
thank you, Lizzie. Those were such helpful additions. And I think Lizzie is a much better resource when it comes to local resources. So thank you so much for adding that. And I'm a personal big fan of the community garden. So thank you for all
Mhm.
that. So if we move to slide 8, so WIC, it's also a nutrition focused program, but it's different in that it's more narrow. So it's designed for early life stages like pregnancy, postpartum, infancy, and early childhood. And so, unlike SNAP, which provides a general grocery benefit, WIC provides specific approved foods and nutrition support. So, while it is more narrowly targeted, it can be meaningful for families during those specific life stages. And I think a common misconception is that eligibility is extremely limited, but many households with young children or infants qualify and don't necessarily realize it. And I think this may be a theme throughout what we talk about today of, checking eligibility and seeing what resources are at your disposal. So if we move to slide 9, another big essential cost, especially in Maine, is going to be heating. It's a structural expense. It is not an optional one. And so I'm going to talk about LIHEAP or LIHEAP, which is a federal program that helps households pay for heating during the winter months. And the amount of assistance depends on a couple factors like income, household size, heating source, for instance, oil, electricity, propane. And then some utility providers also offer their own assistance programs or payment arrangements. And so another theme of today is just hitting on the big essential expenses because those are going to be part of our budgets no matter the other circumstances in our lives. So seeing, where things can be eased if that's possible. So slide 10 is another huge category, probably could be the biggest in terms of expense. And so I'm going to start with MaineCare, which is Maine's version of Medicaid. So health insurance program funded by both the state and the federal government and designed to provide healthcare coverage for both individuals and families. And so similar to these other resources, eligibility is based primarily on income and household size, but the thresholds are not always intuitive. I think one common misunderstanding is that people assume they earn quote unquote too much, where they may in fact still qualify, especially if income is variable or seasonal. And so practically, applications are submitted through the Maine Department of Health and Human Services, which is often online, but there are also local community agencies that frequently assist with this kind of application process because going back to what I was saying before, it can feel cumbersome. I think the most interesting detail about MaineCare is that coverage can sometimes be retroactive. And so, in certain cases, approved benefits may cover recent medical expenses incurred before approval. And so, this can be something to take advantage of potentially. And then, alongside Medicare itself, there is an additional set of programs called Medicare savings programs. And they're important because they address something Medicare does not fully solve on its own, which is the out of pocket costs. And as we all know, those can really add up even if you have insurance. And so, even with Medicare, people are often still paying monthly premiums, deductibles, co-pays. And so, for an individual on a fixed income, those costs can take up a big portion of your budget. And so Medicare savings programs are designed to reduce and in some instances fully cover those costs for people who meet income and asset guidelines. And so in practical terms, what this can mean is the monthly Medicare Part B premium could be paid for you, certain copays could be reduced or even eliminated, and then overall, I'd say healthcare costs can become more predictable. Eligibility is based on income and then also in some cases limited assets. And so the thresholds again can sometimes be higher than people expect. An important point that many may know but others may not is that the program is not automatic. And so you have to apply separately even if you already have Medicare. And so the application goes through MaineCare because in Maine, these programs are administered together through the state Medicaid system. Okay, so we've touched on a lot of the large categories in a budget, but a huge governmental program that I think will be the biggest topic of today is Social Security, which is a federal program that provides monthly income in retirement. It is based on work history and the amount you have earned over your lifetime. So most people become eligible in their early 60s, and the earliest age to begin claiming benefits is 62. But the key point is that the timing of when you start receiving benefits has a direct impact on the amount you receive each month. And so the timing trade off is one of the most important financial planning decisions when you retire. Because if someone begins claiming Social Security at age 62, they will receive payments for a longer period of time, but each monthly payment will be reduced. Now, if someone waits until full retirement age, typically 66 or 67, depending on the birth year, the monthly benefit, of course, increases. And then if someone delays further up to age 70, then the monthly benefit increases again. And so there is not a single correct answer. It is simply a trade off between starting earlier with smaller payments or later with larger payments. And so it's a highly individual decision, but it is a really big decision um, because you will want to think about, do you need the income today? If that is the case, claim it at 62. If you can push it off, that means you will get higher payments, and that can have a big effect on how much you receive over your lifetime. And so things like other financial resources or continuing to work, you can choose to delay in order to increase the monthly benefit. But of course, health and family circumstances and financial stability all play a role in this decision. And so I wouldn't say any choice is universally better, depends on constraints, but it is a big one to think about. Another important aspect of Social Security is that benefits are not only individual. And so survivor benefits are another important point. Spouses may be eligible for spousal benefits based on a partner's earnings record. And so widows or widowers may also be eligible for survivor benefits, which can be significantly higher than individual benefits depending on the circumstances. And so overall, Social Security planning is a household level decision and less so an individual one. Any questions on anything I have covered thus far, particularly Social Security, but anything before that as well? I see
Yeah,
Paul.
Paula.
I have a question. It is the Social Security and spousal or survivor benefits. I'm trying to understand that. So, um, what if neither one of us, I have a spouse, what if neither one of us has declared Social Security and one of us passes away? Is it automatic that he would get mine if I passed away? I don't understand that. Or
So
vice
I
versa?
I believe, and I could be wrong because I haven't personally navigated this system, but from my research, if you are both eligible for Social Security and expect to receive it in retirement, and one of you were to pass away, the other person is eligible, but you do have to go through the application process for that. So it's not automatic that you will just receive a check in the mail. And I think that's why it's so important to know about spousal benefits so that, God forbid, there were an event where you would want to access those spousal benefits, that you would need to take action to do so, and it's not automatic.
Okay, and I guess it's a matter of finding out the opposite thought that what if one of us was and the other one wasn't, and that person passed away, is that automatic then? I don't know. Anyways,
I don't believe it is. I believe you have to
it's
apply
still
straight
okay.
to
Oh,
actually, you know, get it going because at the same time, there may be the trade-off decision of taking it now versus taking it later.
Excuse me.
that's not what I meant. Say I had Social Security right now and I
Mhm.
passed away, would he automatically get it?
I don't think so. He's eligible,
Okay.
would have to go through the process of, or he would have to go through the process of contact
Okay.
security for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh, can I clarify? Because I'm thinking that you have to sign up ahead of time to get that survivor benefit. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when you sign up to have this survivor benefit, that you would also receive less each month. Is that right?
That is a good question that I'm not certain about. I can do further research and follow up with the group. I have heard of instances of not signing up for it beforehand and then people finding ways to get access to it. In terms of the amount, that's a great question that I don't know the answer to, and I will find out.
I'll say that we are at Whirl. We are definitely thinking about. I'm heartened by all of your questions. For hopefully next year, we'll try to do some programming on kind of navigating Social Security, because I know that there are a lot of folks who do have some of these more specific questions that we could get into during a program like that.
And I'll
Did I
just
see?
oh, sorry,
Oh,
I had another
yeah.
question.
Did I see Nancy? Did you have a hand up? Oh, okay. Okay, great. Paula, go for it.
I wanted to backtrack to healthcare and main care. If someone is on uh, so or the Medicare savings, if someone is on Medicare, are they on main care? Is that what you're saying?
No,
It's just no.
no.
Okay.
Two separate government programs.
And they need to apply. If they're on Medicare, they would need to apply through main care.
I was saying if someone is on Medicare and they're interested in the Medicare savings program, they would need to apply for that, and that is not an automatic benefit based on income levels. So it's just another step that needs to be taken, but that is totally separate from main care.
Hmm.
I think if you also, I believe if you go to the Harrington Family Health Center, I think that they have folks there who can help you apply for different health plans. So if you did have specific questions about main care, I think Harrington Family Health Center could be a good resource for you too, Paula.
Okay. Thank you. You.
Okay. It sounds like we can move towards slide 12 to talk about disability programs, which structurally complex versus other benefits because they are so documentation heavy and long in their timelines. They take months to process. It's also common for initial applications to be denied, even when eligibility is ultimately valid. And so, in practice, many successful claims involve appeals or additional documentation. And so, I just wanted to highlight sort of the friction in this process and the fact that if there are denials up front, that doesn't mean there can't ultimately be a payout. But I'll keep this relatively high level on disability programs. We can move it towards slide 13 to talk about a very interesting set of new federal policy proposals and early stage programs that involve what are often called child savings accounts or child investment accounts. You may also have heard of them as the Trump accounts, kind of all the same thing. But the core idea is the same, that you are creating a financial account for a child early in life that can grow over time and be used later in adulthood. And so the basic structure has three main components. And so, first, the account is created for a child at or near birth or early childhood, depending on eligibility rules. Second, in many versions of the proposal, the government provides an initial seed contribution into the account. And so it's typically a one time deposit made when the account is established. And in some proposals, this has been described in the range of about $1,000. But exact amounts and eligibility rules depend on the specific version of the policy being implemented, and that is still being determined. So this is a very new set of proposals. In a recent iteration of the proposal, children born between 2025 and 2028 would receive the $1,000 government contribution. Third, after the account is created, additional contributions can come from different sources like family members, employer contributions in some case, or additional policy driven deposits, depending on how a given program is structured. But I think it's important to know about these because whether it's your child, your grandchild, your niece, really anyone in your family or in the community, I think it's a really cool idea and is essentially the framework that we talked about last week around compound interest and being able to grow capital over a long period of time, particularly because you're literally starting at birth. And so we will get into investing next week, but these accounts are meant to be traditional investment accounts. And so you can choose how they are invested if you want to take a conservative approach, a more hands on approach, gear it towards stocks, bonds. It seems like there's a really broad swath of investment options at your disposal. In most versions of the proposal, the funds are not accessible until the child reaches adulthood. So often intended for things like education, home ownership, or other long-term financial stability goals. And another reason I'm excited about it is because if kids have these accounts, then I think it introduces them to financial planning and financial literacy, and sort of a participation in their financial future. A very important point is that families typically don't need to apply in a complicated way for the initial account creation. In the strongest versions of these policies, of course, they're still being drafted, but instead, eligibility is usually tied to existing systems like Social Security, numbers given at birth, meaning the account would automatically be created and seeded by the government once eligibility criteria are met. And so, unlike a lot of the other programs that we've covered today, this one feels like it has less friction. But it's also important to be clear that the programs are still evolving, so not every single detail is finalized, and implementation timelines, eligibility rules, and funding levels can vary depending on legislation and how things are rolled out. But I think the most accurate way to think about it is it's an emerging policy direction focused on early life savings accumulation. Um, and I think it could be a really powerful thing. So I'm excited to see how it evolves. And if there is a child or a future child in your life, definitely something to take advantage of and then hopefully participate in as the years go on in terms of choosing how it's invested. And we'll talk about investing next week in hopefully a good amount of detail. But I can definitely answer any questions now on, you know, thinking about investing in these accounts, what these accounts are, or really anything that we've covered today. That's the end of the, prepared remarks, or we could just open it up for discussion.
I'll throw in a couple of things. Can you all hear my dogs?
I can't.
That's great. I have closed the door, but they have heard something outside and are doing a lot of barking. So that's wonderful. And I'll also add too on the topic of child savings accounts, there is a Maine specific child savings account. It's called the Alfond Grant, and so that's a $500 grant that's awarded to Maine resident babies specifically for future higher education expenses. And so that's a great if you have someone in your life who has had a baby, that's a great resource. And so all of these things that we're mentioning, that I'm kind of mentioning off the cuff here, I'll also put in a follow-up email too, so you don't feel like you need to remember everything.
Okay. Well, it seems like there aren't follow-up questions, so we can certainly wrap it here and just have a short class today. This is probably the session that is the least in my wheelhouse. So appreciate you all walking through it, and I'll definitely research those follow-ups. Lori, yeah.
Thanks. I had a question about just especially with healthcare so expensive, that idea of I've heard it called a benefits cliff. Like, is there where, if if you make too much money, you no longer are eligible for a lot of these programs. And are there are there ways to work around that legally?
It's
Um,
in
yeah.
question and something I know a lot of people come up against where you're trying to keep income within a certain band. And I think one big topic is taxes. And so determining if these eligibility rules are based on gross income, meaning, your full income versus net income after taxes. And so if things are based on net income, there are a lot of ways to sort of vary your income legally based on how you file taxes and then also what you choose to do. So, for instance, putting money away for retirement, that is typically tax free and would reduce your taxable income. And so I would say taxes would be the biggest sort of lever you could pull to change what your income looks like in the eyes of others in a legal way and taking advantage of tax deductions.
I'd also add to just some things I'm thinking about as we're talking. There are additional local resources that kind of exist outside of some of these different things that we've been talking about. So there's an annual dental clinic. So that happens in Machias every year. A variety of different dental work done there for free. It's a free clinic. That can be a great option. I know that dental work in particular, it can be something that really breaks the bank for people. So I know that they offer routine cleanings, but I think even things as complicated as root canals. So that's always something that's good to keep an eye out for. I think that they just had the dental clinic this year's dental clinic a couple of weeks ago, but that's a program that is administered through Sunrise Opportunities, so you can kind of keep an eye out for that. There's also we offer a series every year, a few of them on navigating Medicare, with a wonderful gentleman named David Weaver. He provides free consultations and can really walk you through your Medicare options. So I would highly recommend that series. He's really helped a lot of people. He doesn't work just with us. He's kind of, you may have seen him at different places around Washington County. He's a very busy guy. There's an annual free tax clinic. I don't know if anyone has already utilized that before. That's a wonderful way to save on getting your taxes done. I know if you have like a very complicated tax picture, that may not be the place for you, but that is something that the Jonesport Memorial Library, they do. They kind of work to set up appointments for that program. They've just ended, of course, but that happens every year. I know they do some at the main Seacoast Mission. I got my taxes done there. It was great. So anything that we mention, you can certainly reach out to me about. If you have a particular question, I know I've heard from a couple of you who've asked questions that are kind of particular to your own individual situation. If I don't know the answer, then I can definitely find someone who does know the answer. So even if it's not kind of rural specific topic wise, shoot me an email, and I would love to connect you with whatever local resources would be appropriate for your situation. I think maybe we're all set, unless that sort of spiel opened up any other questions for anyone. I realized that I just mentioned a lot of programs that like just ended. But oh well, next year. Thank you all for your time. I think we've
Yeah.
ended for tonight.
Well, thank you all, and hopefully see you next week to talk about taxes, retirement, and investing. Okay.
Take care, everyone.